One of the most powerful forces in world politics throughout recent years has been right-wing populism. Characterized by capitalist economics, isolationist foreign policy, and a nationalist society, populist governments have emerged across the world in countries as diverse as the Philippines, the United Kingdom, and Brazil. It seems every nation has a right-wing populist party, and no country can escape the grasp of populist politicians. However, in the past few months, populism has come up against an unforeseen force that nobody could have anticipated: the COVID-19 pandemic. Various populist governments have responded to the pandemic in different ways, but as CNN reports on July 21st of this year, almost all of them have ended horribly for the people involved. Populist government after populist government has fallen to the pandemic and have been unable to respond to it in any meaningful way. This has led foreign policy analysts, international experts, and of course just ordinary people to ask themselves today's question: will the COVID-19 pandemic hurt global populist movements? And we can see that the answer is a clear and resounding yes by looking at three major movements in the world today. First, the United States; second, Brazil; and third, the Philippines. At a press conference in early April, Donald Trump warned every COVID-19 patient in the room to stay as far away from him as possible. But he won't really have to worry about that anymore, because America seems just as determined to stay away from Trump as Trump is determined to stay away from America. The Financial Times report on June 29th of this year that Trump's refusal to listen to experts during the pandemic and his absolutely terrible coverage of testing has led to him being looked down upon by many people throughout the United States. In fact, millions of moderate voters have stated that Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic are what's going to urge them to vote for Biden in November. From Trump's refusal to consult with experts to his peddling of half-baked remedies like injecting yourself with bleach and swallowing a light, has absolutely destroyed his credibility in every meaningful way. Trump and his populist movement will be unable to recover from this, and fortunately so, because if Trump gets elected again this November, COVID-19 will continue to run amok across the American population. Luckily, that doesn't seem like it's in the cards for the future. The New York Times report again on June 29th of this year that Trump is trailing in every major battleground state, oftentimes thanks to his abysmal handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the key state of Florida, he's only at about a 47%. He only has about 47% of the vote. And in the even more critical state of Michigan, Trump is lagging behind Biden at a measly 40%. Trump's abysmal handling of the COVID-19 pandemic is going to completely damage his credibility in the future and end his populist movement in the next few years. But the second major nation with a populist movement that is being afflicted terribly by the COVID-19 pandemic is that of Brazil. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro is often referred to by the nickname the Trump of the tropics. And with his handling of COVID-19, it is definitely fitting. Reuters reports just yesterday that Bolsonaro's handling of the pandemic has led to millions of Brazilians being infected with the disease and leaving over 130,000 dead. That's 130,000 people Bolsonaro could have saved had he taken any meaningful action. Instead, he just decided to deny the pandemic and say that Brazilians bathe in sewage, so we're resilient to any disease they can throw at us. That's a literal, direct quote, by the way. Jair Bolsonaro's abysmal handling of the pandemic has led to millions of Brazilians, including Bolsonaro and his family, being infected with the disease, and has left the blood of 130,000 Brazilians on Bolsonaro's hands. If he doesn't take drastic action soon, he's going to be out of the running in the next Brazilian election. And it looks like he might already be. His approval rating is sitting at a tiny 37%, and as The Guardian reports, on August 3rd of this year, numerous key Brazilian organizations have taken up arms against Bolsonaro and have asked him to step down from office. For example, 1,000 Brazilian doctors, a profession widely respected in Brazil, have written to the International Criminal Court in an attempt to get Bolsonaro removed from power and imprisoned for crimes against humanity. In addition, a coalition of hundreds of Brazilian bishops have written to Bolsonaro asking him to step down and pass the torch along to someone more competent. Bolsonaro's movement has been damaged by the coronavirus pandemic and will be unlikely to recover. But if Trump and Bolsonaro did a bad job responding to COVID-19, they've been put to shame by President Rodrigo Duterte of the Philippines. Duterte has a track record of making terrible policy decisions, including his war on drugs, which killed thousands of innocent people, and making rape jokes to female reporters at a press conference. But it seems like Duterte is determined to outdo himself again, because as The Guardian reports on August 4th of this year, the Philippines are currently leading Southeast Asia when it comes to the COVID-19 infection rate, with over 130,000 people infected. And in a small country like the Philippines, that means a lot. In fact, the Filipino population has grown very frustrated with Duterte's handling of the pandemic, especially with him turning to China for help to get rid of it when he ran on an anti-China campaign just a few years ago. Filipinos are determined to be rid of Duterte once and for all. And this could not be further shown than in an article published by Reuters on July 1st of this year, in which they state unrest among Filipinos is at an all-time high. Ultimately, Duterte's movement has been crushed by the COVID-19 pandemic. So, when we look back on today's question, has the COVID-19 pandemic hurt global populist movements? We can see that the answer is, thankfully, a resounding yes. 3 populist movements, those in the United States, Brazil, and the Philippines, have been absolutely ruined by the pandemic and have no hope